Good evening. Day one of the 2019 World Tour Finals. It's on the books. The day started off with a trip to Beatdown City for Matteo Berrettini, the young Italian. I think Jannik Sinner could have done a better job. But this isn't an ordinary trip to Beatdown City, courtesy of Novak Djokovic, the world number 2 now. Momentarily, perhaps. No, this was no ordinary trip to Beatdown City. This was the kind of trip that could have emotional damage and further implications for the future career of Matteo Berrettini. This is the kind of trip to Beatdown City that could leave people wanting a refund at the conclusion of the match. In the night session, Roger Federer had a much more competitive match, losing 7-5, 7-5 to Dominic Thiem. It was a good match, but of course Roger Federer fans will be feeling very unhappy, unsatisfied, and knowing now that you pretty much have to beat Novak Djokovic to make it to the semifinals of this tournament, it's going to be pretty tough, even for the biggest Fed heads out there, to feel like Roger's still got a shot to win this thing. And I brought out this hat instead of the cat, Mr. Goat, co-host of the show. Today, that co-host is going to be Mr. Hat, because towards the end of the Federer-Dominic Thiem match, I saw a guy in the crowd wearing this very blue RF hat. Of course, this one I got from China. It is a knockoff. It's not real. Of course, the real ones are also made in China, so who cares? But that guy had maybe the real version or maybe this Chinese knockoff version of this royal blue RF hat in the crowd, and he was doing something like this. I think that sums up where all the Roger Federer fans are right now, and unfortunately, I regret to say, many Federer fans going in to next year. Welcome to Coffee Break Tennis. It is late at night over here on the East Coast because that match went a while, so we don't have coffee. We've got single malt scotch night. Today on the show, we'll break down the Roger Federer-Dominic Thiem match. I don't think it's as bad of a loss as it may feel to most of the Federer fans. We'll talk about what Novak Djokovic did so well and what went so wrong for Matteo Berrettini. And we'll talk a tiny bit about the BS Russian versus the Greek Freak tomorrow, as well as Rafa Nadal. Will he play? It looks like he certainly will play, but of course there's still a little bit intrigue in the air. And there were some good stories out there, some interesting things, but I'm going to keep today short. We probably won't get to that. We'll just talk about our matches and the tennis on today's edition of Coffee Break Tennis. Or should I say single malt scotch? Single malt scotch break tennis tonight. And it is that kind of night for the Federer fans. Even I, always so optimistic about Roger Federer matches and where things are. Not a very good feeling coming away from that match. And of course, it's because last year, when Roger Federer didn't have the best start in the World Tour Finals, he lost his first match last year, still made it to the semifinals, losing to Sasha Zverev, who played the best he's ever played before. And then he took Dominic Thiem to Beatdown City. This year, it kind of, even though it's 7-5, 7-5, even though, if you look at the stats, only 5 points difference. Dominic Thiem, out of all the points won, only won 5 more points than Roger Federer. That doesn't sound like a beatdown, but I think for Federer fans, it kind of felt like, for most, just from what I saw on Twitter, my own feelings watching the match, it kind of felt like it was going to be really difficult for Federer to come back. And one key stat, sure, it's 5 points, but 8. 8 was the number I saw, miles per hour, average forehands and backhands. Dominic Thiem, whenever they showed the graphic on Tennis Channel, I was watching it today, you saw Dominic Thiem was always at least 8 or more miles per hour on average ahead in the topspin. When I first saw that graphic, I thought, well, that's because Roger's doing a lot of slices too, mixing those shots in so it brings down the average. But then I saw, oh no, on the graphic, it says average topspin forehands and backhands. Dominic Thiem, I mean, come on, it was obvious. Dominic Thiem was gripping and ripping, out-hitting Roger. He was hitting really big on the serves as well. They showed a quote at some point early in the match where Dominic Thiem had said, after the U.S. Open, obviously he had, I think it was first round. Dominic Thiem lost first round this year at the U.S. Open. Very disappointing for him, of course. And after the U.S. Open, he sat down with his team and he said, look, I want to change the way I approach hard courts. Yes, Dominic Thiem beat Roger at Indian Wells, but everyone knows Indian Wells is the most clay-like hard court there is. That's why Rafa has historically done better at Indian Wells than he has at Miami, where things change right away, even though it's 2 hard courts played in the same exact month, both in the U.S. We know Dominic Thiem can win on Indian Wells, kind of hard court, But on a faster indoor hard court, Dominic Thiem said he wanted to change his total approach. And he said one of the things he did was he improved not just his volleys, but also his serve and return, because when it's a faster court, you can't work your way back into the point the way Dominic Thiem or Rafa Nadal on clay they're so accustomed to doing. It's so important to start from his position of power. This is something that Roger Federer does so well. It's another reason why Novak Djokovic is so good on hard courts. Federer is always putting himself in a winning position right off the serve, and oftentimes, especially on faster courts, with the second serve, and does the same off of a return. Roger Federer able to do a lot of creative things with the blocks and the slices on the return. Of course, Novak Djokovic able to put himself in a winning position with pretty much any kind of return and able to just neutralize, as we saw against Matteo Berrettini. The dude was averaging 133 miles per hour on his first serve, and Djokovic, this is an incredible stat. Put this on the screen. To me, this was the stat of the day. 133 miles per hour average first serve from Matteo Berrettini. And Novak Djokovic able to get 90% of those balls back in play and give himself a chance. And he sure did. Berrettini under 50% win on first serve. I think his second serve win percentage was 29. It was awful. And then, of course, don't forget the 28 unforced errors. But that's enough stats. Back to Dominic Thiem. He said he wanted to change the way he played, and he sure did it today. If you watch that match, it was like going back in time. The way these guys were both stalking the baseline, these guys both showing a desire to come to net. One stat, put this on the screen. I can't remember off the top of my head. I wrote down some of the stats in my show notes, but not this one. I believe Roger was 12 out of 22 win at net. Clearly, Dominic Thiem doing a lot of things good if he was able to keep Roger Federer so low in a place where on a faster court especially, Roger Federer usually finds so many free points, easy points. Roger Federer just looked very uncomfortable to me throughout this entire match, and I think a big part of it was not just that Dominic Thiem was hitting harder than Roger. He was hitting really hard, just as hard as he hits on clay, but look at where he's doing it from, and look at the depth that he's finding now that he's doing it from the baseline. So let's put these on the screen really quick. Take a look at this. This is Dominic Thiem's shot placement in the first set. Dominic Thiem constantly pounding the Federer backhand corner. You see 64%. Only 14 went up the middle. And then 22%. This 22%, every time, and Roger loves to dictate play by moving over and hitting inside out forehands or forehands inside in, and kind of protecting his backhand, which he had to do. Dominic Thiem kind of forced him to do it. You can see Dominic Thiem constantly peppering the backhand. And there was a lot of times where any ball that dropped a little short, and there was plenty of them from Roger today. I would love to see forced errors and just balls that were dropped short by Roger Federer, how often it was happening, how uncomfortable he was in this match today. Because when that would happen, anytime that would happen, I mean, Dominic Thiem, any ball he could really go after, he would take it into that forehand corner because Roger would be defending the backhand corner and just hit the open court with so much raw pace. A lot of times Roger wouldn't even run for the ball. Just nothing he could do. And we did, of course, see Roger running out to his right, playing defensive forehands that he just couldn't even get him back in play. Dominic Thiem did a good job of, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Federer looks old and he's slowing down, he's lost a step. I don't think he has. I think Dominic Thiem, with the pure firepower and stepping in so close to the baseline throughout the entire match, he really stuck to the game plan. He made Roger look slow. He made Roger look old at several times in this match. Something, as a big Fed fan myself, I don't like seeing it. I did not have fun watching that match. There were a few moments where Roger had his typical brilliance, and it was great to see, but not enough of them for me to enjoy watching that match as a big Federer fan. Although I do have to credit Dominic Thiem from start to finish. He stuck to the new game plan. He was always on the baseline. He was always looking to attack. He even came to net several times and looked pretty good up there. Although I will offer a slight caveat. Roger Federer, I thought, it was a good matchup for him still, even though I don't have the numbers in front of me. I don't know how Dominic Thiem did at net. Okay, I looked it up. The net numbers for Dominic Thiem was 5 out of 8. Federer 12 out of 22. So Federer held a little under 50%. Dominic Thiem a little over 60% at the net. So pretty good. But I still saw, I guess 3 times I saw it, where Roger was able to force Dominic to hit a low ball at the net, an uncomfortable ball into like the hips down low. I still like that, but I got to say, Dominic Thiem, he looked like a new player out there. And if you're a big Dominic Thiem fan out there, this gives me a lot of hope for Dominic Thiem that he actually could win a major, maybe even next year. If he's able to adapt his game, if you saw the last show, I said Matteo Berrettini, because of the faster surface, with the big serve and the big forehand and the low slice. I'll give him a shot to beat Djokovic or Federer here if he has a great day. He did not have a great day. He had one of the worst days in the entire year when he played Djokovic today. Whereas Dominic Thiem, I said, I don't think he's going to be able to adapt, especially if the courts are playing faster and also on court speed. It's a little early to say, but I'll say it looked like Federer could have been feeling this way. This is how I felt. The court was fast enough with how hard Dominic Thiem was hitting the ball and how early he was taking it to really rush Federer and have all the negatives of trouble timing the ball at times with a faster court. And then, because of Dominic Thiem's incredible movement in stalking the baseline, taking the ball pretty early, it felt like the court maybe for Roger could have felt a little slow when he was hitting the ball because he couldn't get a ball past the guy. But anyways, I said Dominic Thiem, I didn't give him a chance to beat Federer or Djokovic here because I didn't think he'd be able to adapt his game. Clearly, he's doing it. Maybe I should have given more credit for his indoor results. He won in Vienna and he won somewhere else, not Stockholm. What was it? Was it in China? Not Shanghai, the tournament right before Shanghai in China somewhere. I said, those indoor courts, they're not as fast as these indoor courts, and it wouldn't matter. I was wrong, and clearly Dominic Thiem, he's shown a desire to change up his game, and he's extremely effective at it today. So that gives him a lot of hope to say he could win anywhere next year, perhaps. Real quick, take a listen to this. I thought this was very funny. This is one of the reasons why we love the guy. He's a very humble, likable guy, Dominic Thiem. Who could forget when Serena Williams kicked him out of the press box, out of the press room? Was it the French Open? Was it Wimbledon? I can't remember. Wherever it was, and Dominic Thiem was so upset. And most people still took his side, other than the people who only watch Serena and don't really watch tennis. Those were the only people. A lot of people out there who just like Serena as a celebrity and don't watch tennis. People on TV, remember, they didn't like Dominic Thiem. But everyone else took Dominic Thiem's side right away because he's a very likable guy. Take a listen to this interview. You can even see it in the face. I worry that they'll pull our video off YouTube, the ATP, if I show you. But Dominic Thiem makes a little face at this lady interviewing him, like, geez, lady, what are you trying to do to me here? Listen to the questions from this lady.
I think we had a good and close match, and of course it's always something very special to beat Roger, as he is an absolutely legend. I love to play against him just to learn a lot, so thanks a lot.
Well, you say you love to play against him. You clearly do, because you have a winning record against him. It's your 5th win and 3rd win against him this year. So why do you match up so well against him?
Well, it's not because of that I love to play him. It's because it's amazing to play against probably the best player of all time, to play against a real legend like that.
Dominic Thiem is like, whoa, lay off. Are you trying to say I'm better than Federer? And are you trying to get me to agree with that? They're going to start booing me right here on court. Please chill. And this is the moment. If you can find it, take a look at the face Dominic Thiem. He makes it just for a moment. Oh, man, speaking of faces, did you see the face Federer made when he missed that overhead? I think he was up 40-30. And he had a chance to finish a serve game in the second set, maybe for, take the lead 5-4 or 4-3. And Federer ends up holding anyways, but he misses this overhead, and Federer made a face. Clearly Federer very uncomfortable today. The question for me moving forwards, is it more because Roger Federer is playing bad and knows he can get his game up higher, or is it more because Dominic Thiem was playing so well that it really threw Federer off his own game? That is the real question. I think Federer played pretty well. I think he could have played better. Like I said, it's the question. It's tough for me to say because Dominic Thiem did so much right, and he executed so well today. Anyways, take a listen to this. She even does it again. Dominic Thiem saying, hey, I don't like to play Roger because I have a winning head-to-head against him. I like to play him because he's a legend of the game, and I can learn from him, as you heard Dominic, very humble, from Dominic Thiem said. And then I can't remember exactly, but she basically says, like, boy, did you show everyone today. Boy, did you sure did that, didn't you, Dommy? And Dommy makes this quick fit. Take a listen.
Luckily, I have a pretty good record against him, and I try to stay positive in this head-to-head all the time.
Well, you certainly did that.
He makes a little face when she says that, just for a moment. Almost like the face Federer made when he missed that overhead. Okay, real quick before we move on, we'll talk about Matteo Berrettini really quick. Let's take a look. Take a look at Dominic Thiem's depth. Depth of shot was a big deal today. There was a game where I think it was 5-all in the first set, Roger Federer had his serve broken, and it seemed like every return came back so deep that it surprised Federer. His weight was moving forward into the court, And there was one shot where he literally had to kind of pick up the ball like behind him. And obviously he did not make that shot. And just take a look, 39% of these balls are coming very deep, and 51% are going past the service line with the kind of pace Dominic Thiem was hitting. How fast that would have been on Roger from the baseline where Dominic Thiem was hitting the ball from to land past the service line, that's going to be effective, but almost 40% of the balls going closer to the baseline. Roger was +2, 24 winners on 22 unforced errors. Thiem was -1 in the winners to unforced errors differential. I would love to see the forced errors stat here. Let's move over to Matteo Berrettini and Novak Djokovic. I would say that you could make a case. We've heard Djokovic is serving so well. He's serving so well. Berrettini and Djokovic did a lot to really put the pressure on Berrettini, but I still feel like Berrettini, he was really nervous being here for the first time. I thought he was going to go in feeling like, hey, I got nothing to lose. I'm the last man in to the tournament, so I'm going to let it rip, and I gave him a shot to maybe pull off a win against Federer or Djokovic, but not the case at all. Clearly, he was very nervous and uncomfortable to be here. Tons of unforced errors. I think you can argue that both Federer and Dominic Thiem served better than Djokovic today, but Djokovic getting more points, more free points. Djokovic winning 70% on first serve. Maybe that's because Berrettini's just giving him away a little bit easily. Djokovic winning 75% win first serve, Federer 70, Dominic Thiem 65, and of course Berrettini under 50%. There was a forehand Berrettini missed. He tried to kind of come under it and sweep it just up the line and be a little careful, and he hit it into the net. I believe that was 2-3 in the first set, 30-40. It felt like Berrettini had a chance. He could work his way in, get a little more comfortable. And I believe at that point of the match, he already was at 10 unforced errors. It was a funny thing for me. Djokovic was just airtight. He sealed off the game. No unforced errors leaking out, hardly at all. He was basically going 1-5 with Berrettini. Djokovic had 1 unforced error. Berrettini had 5. As soon as Djokovic had 2 unforced errors, Berrettini already had 10. And then by the end of the set, I think it was 3 unforced errors for Djokovic and 17 unforced errors for Berrettini in the first set. Of course, by the end of the match, Djokovic has 8 unforced errors. Berrettini, an incredible 28 unforced errors. I mean, it was a bad match for the Italian. But, I think he'll bounce back. I know I said at the beginning of the show that this could have implications for the future. This could mess him up. I will say, the biggest difference, have you seen Jannik Sinner? This guy, he's another Italian. He's got red hair. He was a champion skier at his age group. He was number 1 when he was, I don't know, whatever age he was. He probably would have been the under 10s. When he was the over 10s or the 12 and ups, whatever age, he was the number 2 skier in Italy for his age group. Djokovic, also a great skier. There is a lot to be said about this. I think we shouldn't look over this because these guys have a different level of balance. And one of the things that separates the best players in the world from everyone else, everyone's got great shots, superb footwork, superb balance. Obviously, Djokovic has made a brand out of his balance and his footwork. Jannik Sinner, this is another guy who's going to have that kind of balance. And one thing that I saw watching highlights from throughout the year, you probably learned about Jannik Sinner when I did, was seeing him play in Italy on the clay earlier in the year. He lost to Tsitsipas. He beat Stevie Johnson, the mustache, if I remember correctly. And that was when I first saw him. And I was pretty impressed with him. I remember saying, he's got this big serve and forehand. He kind of looks like Tomas Berdych to me a little bit. Just his face, his whole look. He's 6'2". He moves well. He's got a great backhand up the line. And one of the things I didn't realize is how good he is at the net. Watching some of I hate the way they score this next-gen ATP World Tour Finals, the next-gen top 8 thing. Seeing sets that end at 4 games, it makes me not want to watch. But I wish I had said it in the last show. The one thing I wanted to see was I wanted to watch Sinner. I'm very curious by this 18-year-old. He's the youngest man in the top 100 right now. He's even younger than Felix Auger-Aliassime. And one thing that I really notice about him, Peter Freeman said, I asked Peter Freeman, what do you think of him? Because Peter's a great coach. He's really good at spotting talent. And he said, one thing I noticed is for an 18-year-old, this guy really can produce easy power. He reminds me of a better version of Sasha Zverev in producing easy power off the forehand and backhand. So that's a big deal. But remember, Sasha Zverev was so terrible at net for a long time. Jannik Sinner was so good at the net. And the thing with Berrettini that makes me think maybe he'll struggle next year after having a breakout year this year, hopefully not. I like Berrettini, and I hope for the best for him, but he doesn't seem to understand how to finish points if it's not just flowing off the big serve and the big forehand. He's got the backhand slice, which is a nice thing to have, and he can use it effectively, but I don't think he always knows what to do when he's out there if it's not just coming big serves and big forehands, most of his points being won. Djokovic able to make him play extra balls, make him a little uncomfortable. It's not working. The guy didn't know what to do. When I watch Jannik Sinner, this guy really knows how to finish a point. He can produce winners from pretty much anywhere on the court. Great serve and forehand, big backhand, really good at hitting backhand winners up the line. He did a lot of at the Next Gen in Milano. And the other thing is just sensing when to come forwards, stalking the baseline. Like, look how hard Dominic Thiem had to work to the point where I said he's never going to do it. I said Dominic Thiem is never going to figure this out. I've heard it before where he's going to try to be better on faster courts and stalk the baseline. And I said, you know what? He can't figure it out. He says he's going to do it. It's clearly not working. Last year at the World Tour Finals after Federer thumped him, I thought he'll never do it. That's why I said he's not going to beat Djokovic or Federer here. Clearly he's doing it. Look how hard he had to work to make that happen. You watch Jannik Sinner, the guy's 18. He's already doing it, constantly moving forwards, always on the baseline, always attacking. That might be the next-gen guy to watch out for. These other guys, it might have been an illusion all along. It was all about Jannik Sinner. Hit the music because we're going to get out of here. Anyways, I just wanted to talk about Jannik Sinner because if you haven't seen the guy yet, he is definitely worth a look. And like I said, put this on the screen. Last thing, this was a great tweet. I forgot that Hyun Chung had won this thing 2 years ago, this next-gen monstrosity where they play sets to 4 games. Remember, 2 years ago, that was the one where they had the females walk them on a walk, and then they would do a strip tease. Remember all the controversy about that? Yeah, that was crazy. That was the first time they did it. Hyun Chung won it the next year, 2018. Beats Djokovic, goes to the semifinals of the Australian Open, loses to the champion, Federer. The next year, the same year, 2018, the Young Guns ATP Next Gen Final. Tsitsipas wins it. Remember that? Goes to the Australian Open, makes the semifinal. Big upset. This time not Djokovic over Federer. Federer took out Chung. Remember, Chung had a blister, couldn't finish the match. Tsitsipas might as well have not finished the match when Nadal destroyed him in the semifinals. Beats one big three member, loses to another in the semis. 2020. The champion of the ATP Next Gen monstrosity, Jannik Sinner. Is he going to make the 2020 semifinals at the Australian Open? Is he going to beat one of the big three? Comment below. We'll be back tomorrow night talking about all the matches that happen tomorrow. See ya!